The goal of leadership is to be a platform, which means I want people to stand on my shoulders. Mission drives passion. You got to have a mission behind your tongue. And people can feel that, by the way, in their spirit and their conviction.
Hey everyone, it's Josh Andrew here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Conversations with Josh Andrew. We're all about leadership, having meaningful conversations, and getting just a little bit better every day. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Your support helps us reach more people and continue bringing your great content. Thanks for listening. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's get into this week's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Conversations. This is going to be a fun topic this week. We're going to be talking about strength in teams. I'm going to give you a couple ideas or thoughts anyways on how to strengthen your team. I believe strong, healthy teams are what produce growth. I think a lot of leaders, I think a lot of people are seeking to find growth or even have a motive of growth, which I don't think is bad, but I think even better than a motive of growth is having a motive of health. So, again, I just want to give you a couple caveats here. One, this episode anyways is really for pastors, for church leaders. I think it does apply to business leaders. I think a lot of the content that I do, I try my best to make sure it applies to any leader in the world, but obviously in my sphere of influence tends to be leaders in the church, which I'm very thankful for. I am going to give quite a bit of scripture today. I think it's something that I want to try to do more of, just to give context, but also to give the Bible, because I think the Bible is a great roadmap for your life, regardless if you're a Christian or not. I think if you follow the Bible and apply the Bible, I believe your life could change. I believe your leadership could change. I believe your church could change. And so on. So again, I'm going to give you a couple thoughts here, and a lot of this is derived anyways from a teaching I did with our team this week, talking about strength and about growth and about health and the things that we all care about, but very much so. And a lot of times people don't necessarily give proper context and or don't give any details. We do, in the church anyways, we do podcasts or we do posts about problems, but a lot of times we don't offer solutions. And I want this podcast to always be a place that offers solutions more than talking about problems. So again, the key to building strong teams. Building strong teams is foundational to the success of any ministry. This teaching, right now anyways, is going to break down the essentials that leaders need to focus on, which is you. So number one, we need to identify what each person needs. How crazy is that? Identifying needs. We got to know what people need. We got to know what people want. We got to know what their goal is, what their motive is. And something that I guess I always try to break into three buckets anyways. This is leaders talking to leaders. I believe you got to know your audience. You got to know who you're talking to, who you're communicating to. The way I would lead an MC moment or preach on Sunday is different than the way I would talk to leaders, high stakeholders in the church. So again, you got to identify what your team needs, what your staff needs, what your leaders need. I'm usually always in these three buckets. They either need care, correction, or coaching. And that's usually for what I'm going to submit to you is someone on your team right now needs one of those three. Every single person on your team needs either care, correction, or coaching. And let's break those down a little bit. So care. Some unique people on your team just need personal support. They need compassion, they need a coffee, which we'll talk about later. Maybe they need a phone call, and they just need actual pastoral care. They have some stuff going on in their life. Before you speak into someone's life, by the way, make sure you're willing to help carry the weight. I understand ministry is heavy. We all are going through stuff, and for us to not be the actual church, to be there for people, to care for people, and to just solve practical needs in their life. A lot of times we try to make it too complicated. Sometimes they just need somebody to watch their kids and for them to be able to go out to a date night or to just sit with them and listen to them. And they can get it. It goes back to you just need to ask what they need. One of the best advice I've ever been given and that's been modeled in my life is pastors in my life always go, do you need my ear right now? Do you need advice right now? Do you need me to just encourage you right now? What do you need from me in this conversation? I believe will help a ton. And that will help you anyways be a person, be a pastor anyways, who actually shows that you care about your people. Galatians 6:2 says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Christ has literally called us to love one another, which Jesus was obviously talking about Christians loving Christians. And very much so in Galatians, it's saying, hey, we need to carry each other's burdens. And that actually goes both ways, by the way. You as a leader need to be able to be vulnerable with your team to make sure they know you're a real human being. You're not just a robot leader. You are going through stuff as well. You're making stuff happen. And you can also be a person who gets cared for. So caring, correction. Some people might just need correction. And it obviously always needs to come from a place of love. And you got to think of correction as just realigning. Hey, these are standards that we've communicated through. These are things that you and I have both mutually agreed that this is something that you're responsible for. And again, it always goes back to intent and impact. I think practically, again, here's a solution. Hey, I know you didn't intend to do this, but this is how it impacted us. This is huge. I know you didn't intend to do this, but this is how it impacted us as an organization. Clear example, somebody showed up late 2 times in a row. Hey, I know you didn't intend to do this, but honestly, you showing up late really impacted us because we weren't able to start on time. And now there's actually 30 people who are also late and behind because of this. Knowing how to correct somebody, honestly, is usually good leaders can do it okay. Great leaders can do it. And you leave the conversation thinking, I'm a great leader. I have potential. My leader believes in me. Not, I'm such a bad person, which is shame, which is condemnation. We don't ever want to do that. We always want to produce encouragement and obviously coming from a place of love. Proverbs 27:6 says, wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Flattery is the kiss of the enemy. Talk about this all the time. We don't want flattery. We don't want words that don't mean anything or don't have any depth. But actual correction comes because I love you more than your role. I love you more than your title. I love you so much so I'm willing to risk our relationship, and I'm willing to risk your position because if I see a pattern, I am going to be responsible to speak to it. So some people need care. Some people need correction, and some people need coaching. Some people honestly just might not have the right attitude, but need guidance in developing their skills, like practical skills in their life. A great coach doesn't just tell people what to do, they show them how to grow. We all know the things that we're trying to grow, but the great thing is, as a leader, I'm constantly trying to get just new tools in people's tool belts. Like, man, I'm trying my best to help them get new tools in their tool belt, a new strategy, a new thought, a new way of doing something. Not because they're not doing something bad. We could actually be winning games and still be getting better. I think that's the great teams in the NFL and NBA. The best teams, the best players on teams are always the ones, even though they're winning, even though they're getting MVPs, they're still getting better. And I want to say this, every pastor, you need to have a coach. Every coach, you need to have a coach. Every lawyer, you need to have somebody who understands the law to be able to speak to you and challenge you and encourage you. I think that's the point. Proverbs 22:6, this is more parenting, but I think it does apply to this as well. Train up a child in the way they should go, and even when they're old, they will not turn from it. So we as spiritual leaders, we as pastors, as shepherds, we got to train sheep. We got to train people. And it says on the way they should go. So you're training people on the go. You're training people as the future version of themselves. You're putting new tools in their tool belt. So like I said, you got to identify the needs. They either need care, they need correction, or they need coaching. And I would put every single person down on a piece of paper and sit in prayer and go, God, does this person need care? Do they need correction, or do they need coaching? So after you've indicated they need care, correction, or coaching, this is something super important to think about. And this is very much so, again, building strong people, which creates strong teams, is they either need a coffee or a teaching. So I guarantee you there's people on your team right now that are loving and living in culture, and their skills just aren't actually at par or where they need to be. And vice versa, there are people on your team who have the best skills. They're great worship leaders, they're great singers, they're great guitar players, they're great kids ministry volunteers, servant leaders, and they don't carry your culture. This is something that's a constant battle, and obviously my context as a church planner, but very much so in any organization or any church or any team. There's people who carry skills that don't actually carry your culture. And there are also people who carry your culture but don't have any skills. And us as leaders have to indicate, this kind of actually goes into more just coaching on that first point, but does this person need a coffee or does this person need a teaching? And I'm going to help you delineate or think through this. So if they need a coffee is somebody who carries skills but doesn't have culture. So this always goes back to the people who are very skilled. They're highly skilled leaders. Maybe they're so administrative, but they don't have the heart connection. And heart connection happens on one-on-ones. Heart connection happens on FaceTimes. Obviously, coffee is not a literal thing. That's more of a hyperbole, but I actually do believe getting a coffee with somebody and sitting for an hour and not talking about granular skills, but talking about heart stuff, talking about vision, talking about the mission and the application of the mission, having an actual deep, authentic conversation. And again, always being okay with the realignment. So some of the best leadership happens in coffees, not just in meetings, because our hearts are sharpened before skills. And man, if we have the most skilled, gifted leaders, but they don't carry your culture, one, you don't have a team, but then two, if you do, it's honestly everyone's kind of going to be running their own thing. And that's where disunity slips in, and skills that actually don't have attachment or culture, what you're going to end up having is a bunch of anomalies, which creates disunity, like I just said. But also, there's no such thing as no culture. It's bad culture. And now you're going to see the fruit of that. There's going to be a byproduct of bad culture in your organization. For my context, for church, for somebody listening to this, a lot of the fruit usually goes back to this point. A lot of people are gifted. You got so many gifted people on your team. You got so many gifted people on your staff, and none of them carry your culture. Why? You haven't defined it. You need to define it. You need to literally define, not just on a wall and not just on a site, but in people's hearts. I say this often. Most people have a hint of your culture, not the heart of your culture. A lot of people in your organization, they got the hint of it. They get it. They saw it on your site. They've heard your teaching, but they don't have it in their heart. And that's a huge thing. So again, coffee, you've heard this Bible verse before. Proverbs 27:17 is iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. This is coffee. This is doing life with people. And the more you do life with people, the more they're going to catch the culture. Because again, people have a hint of your culture, not a heart of it. Because why? It's caught, not taught. You're trying to teach something that can only be caught. And usually that's an indicator that either you're not living in it yourself or you are not connected to your leadership team or your team close enough. So they need a coffee or they need a teaching. Those who are aligned with your culture but need skill development, invest in trainings. There are great courses online. There are great videos. There are YouTube links. There are books. There are so many resources online. Something that frustrates me is when leaders or churches think that they just need to develop their own program or develop their own class or course. Yes, I understand. There are cultural teachings and cultural responsibilities that can be only applied to your current local context. But there are so many great resources. There's so many great books, online webinars, videos, even pastors or people that you could connect them with to help them actually ask questions or learn something. Because again, there are people, and these are the best, by the way, the people who get the culture. They're so much fun to be around. They're living in the thing that you've wanted. They're just not actually there, like practically with their skill development. So again, you can't, this is something for you to chew on. You can't pass on what you don't possess. So once we have our heart developed, do we have our skills? So again, you got to possess it. You got to possess the culture. You got to possess the heart. And You got to be willing to be the leader who doesn't know everything, but is willing to connect that person with somebody else or something else for them to develop. The whole goal of leadership is not to have a platform. The goal of leadership is to be a platform, which means I want people to stand on my shoulders. I want the people who are leading alongside of me to grow and to flourish and to be the best version of who God has designed them to be. I want them to be better than me in everything. I'm so okay with that, because why? I don't want a platform. I want to be one. I want people to flourish around me. I want people to develop around me. And it always goes back, hitting point 2 again. They either need a coffee or they need a teaching. Coffee is somebody who has the skills but doesn't have the culture. Teaching is somebody who has the culture, doesn't have the teaching. So I'm going to go back again. Number 1, we got to identify the needs of our people. They either need care, they need correction, or they need coaching. So now we have that indicated. Now, do they need a coffee or do they need a teaching? We get to that point. I want to help you redefine what you're trying to do here. You are trying to multiply leaders. You are trying to reproduce leaders. How do we do this? I'm going to break it down very easy for you, because a lot of times, honestly, you don't have people on your team who you can even pray, God, help me identify what are their needs. Do I need to take this person on a coffee, or do you need to take this person on a teaching? Because why? You don't have a team, and that's okay. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I believe, again, I'm going to give you 2 simple points here to make it very, very practical. Even if you're a staff member and you might have people around you, but they're not actually a part of the vision or mission. Okay, so here you go. Here's the 2 points, and we're going to go pretty in depth here. Choose somebody, give them a mission. That's it. Think about the book of Jonah. God chose Jonah and gave him a mission. Think about Jesus. Jesus chose Peter, gave him a mission. Follow me and I will make you. Follow me and I will make you. That is our mission as leaders. So you got to choose the right people for your team. The strength of your team starts with the people you choose. It's not about finding skilled individuals, but those whose hearts align with the mission. It's not about skills and giftings. All that stuff matters after people have your culture. I would even suggest to sit people down who have skills and don't have culture. Because again, I think culture can be caught 100%. Skills can be taught. Culture is caught. The right heart, the right spirit can't be replaced. The people have to have the right intent, the right motive. And this is for leadership roles, by the way. This isn't just for somebody holding a sign in the parking lot. I understand we all have entry levels and we have a journey with people. But you got to find heart alignment when you're choosing somebody. Like I said, skills can be taught, but the right heart cannot be replaced. Don't just look for the most capable people. Look for the ones with the calling that matches the mission. You got a bunch of yes men around you. You got people pleasers around you, and there's never any conflict or never any pushback or never any different thoughts besides the ones you give. That's a clear sign you don't have the right people on the bus. John 15:16 says, "You did not choose me. I chose you and appointed you to bear lasting fruit." You didn't choose God. God chose you. And for us, we have to be okay with choosing the right people to be in the right seat on your bus. So again, look for heart alignment. Is their heart engaged with the mission that you are trying to achieve? And then here we go. Prioritize character over talent. Heart aligned with God's vision will sustain the mission over time. Skills can be taught, but a heart aligned with God's vision is priceless. Because why? 1 Samuel 16:7, right here. The Lord looks at the heart. God gave you your gifts and talents, by the way, and he's working on your character. Because a person with character, a person with integrity, can be somebody who's going to, over time, produce fruit and reproduce themselves in other people. Very much so. It's the same exact thing. Somebody with toxicity, somebody that gossips, somebody that's not disciplined, that is going to be reproduced in your culture. Because why? You teach what you know, you reproduce who you are. So you're looking at the fruit of your team, it's a mirror. Everything that your team is doing right now is a mirror of your leadership. If they're not showing up on time, they're not meeting expectations, if they're not carrying culture, that's a mirror. You're not teaching it well enough, or you're not modeling it well enough. So here we go. Like I said, choose the right person. Just choose somebody. There's somebody in your church, on your team, who is already showing up early. They probably have ideas that you shut down. Now it's time to get away from that and just choose them. And here's the next part. Give them a mission. And give your team a mission, not just tasks. Strong teams need a sense of purpose. Empower your team by giving them a mission that gives meaning to their work. My job is to give mission to their work, because mission gives meaning. If you don't explain the why, and not explain yourself all the time, you don't want people that you have to give context to or give clarity to every single time you ask them to do something. There has to be some level of trust here. But again, mission drives passion. People are more motivated by purpose than by tasks. Tasks are important. We have to execute. We have to get things done, and we have to do them at a high level. People need more than a task, though. They need a mission that gives meaning to their work. So the gist is very much so here. Matthew 28:19. Go and make disciples of all nations. Okay? He didn't say, go to this restaurant, meet this person, sit down with them, fill out this spreadsheet. All that stuff's incredible in 2024, by the way. I love all of that stuff. But what he did was he gave them a mission. A pretty broad mission, by the way. Go and make disciples of all nations. Okay, Jesus, thanks. Can you give me a little context here? Because a lot of times in 2024, that's what happens. You give your team a mission, and what they do is they just ask 50 questions. They need clarity on 27 different things. And when they're seeking clarity, what they're doing is they're actually deconstructing what God gave you. You got to have a culture of, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it the best of our abilities, and we're not going to ask 50,000 questions. We're going to count the cost, then we're going to stop counting. So again, mission drives passion. You got to have a mission behind your tongue. And people can feel that, by the way, in their spirit and their conviction. People can feel the fact that you are not a person that actually has the heart engaged. You're just telling them what to do. Those are managers. Managers without a good team aren't efficient, aren't great. It's the good team that you as a leader need to impact them with mission. And here you go. Develop leaders, not just doers. We don't want helpers. We don't want doers. The best leaders that I've ever been around shape other leaders. You need to constantly be in the leadership development business. The best leaders don't just give direction. They offer a path for others to grow into who they're meant to be. Every one-on-one I've ever had, the first conversation is not, here's what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, why we're going to do it. This is where we're going. It's where do you want to go? Because again, I don't want leaders anyways around me who just want to subscribe to my vision. I want to be around leaders who have vision. I want to be around people that are going to be on our team who have vision for their life, for their calling, and God's called them, that there's nothing else I'd rather do on the planet than build a local church. So again, you want to be a great leader, don't just give directions. Listen to people's journey and listen to who they want to become, what they want to do, what they want to achieve, what God's called them to do. And the people that align with the mission that you believe God's called you to do, that is how you make a healthy team and also dominate. Matthew 4:19 says, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. So what I said, that's what you do as a leader. You say, follow me and I will make you blank. After you've listened to them, you've heard all their dreams and visions and ambitions, and you go, wow, that's incredible. Follow me and I will make you the person that type of role or that type of mission needs to be a part of it. Last couple thoughts here. You have to build strong relationships with your team. Relationships are the glue that holds strong teams together. People don't follow leaders just because of their position, but because of their trust and connection. So potentially, right now, anyways, the most entry-level leadership is positional leadership. We know that. That's John Maxwell. John Maxwell always says, if you use your title to be a place of authority, it's not really any influence. It's not really any leadership. What actual leaders do is they serve people, they build people, and they build trust and connection. If you're building trust and connection with people, I promise you there's a lot of unity on that, a lot of strength in that. And again, this episode's about strength. So again, you can't just tell people to give them roles, to give them titles, because again, people follow those they trust, not just those in authority. We know this. We live in 2024. Just because somebody's in authority doesn't mean I trust you. And trust is huge. And trust, I believe, is lost in buckets, gained in drops. So you start with the full bucket around somebody, but the second you're late to something, the second you don't follow through with your word, people feel that, people see that, and people see patterns, and they continue to go, I don't know if I can trust him. Think I like him as a leader, think he's cool to be around, but I can't trust him. So again, relationship over authority. People don't follow those, they just trust, not just those they are in authority. You gotta seek relationships over authority. John 13:34 says, as I have loved you, so you must love one another. Jesus said, I loved you, and you need to love one another just as much as I've loved you. Jesus died for you, by the way, and he resurrected for you. He sacrificed his life for you, very much so. It's our responsibility as leaders is to facilitate that with one another. And by the way, nobody has ever wanted to be submitted to a leader who needs being submitted to. Nobody wants to be around the pastor who forces things on you or has a very, very toxic, unhealthy version of honor because they're insecure or broken and they honestly, it's an identity crisis trying to fill in a void that only Jesus can. We don't want to be those type of people. We want to build strong, healthy disciples of Jesus. You need to be a strong, healthy person, disciple of Jesus. So again, we got to coach through relationships. Last couple thoughts here. Effective coaching is built on strong relationships. True coaching happens when people feel sharpened, not just directed. You can't just direct people what to do. You're not a general. You're a pastor. You're a leader. Leaders sharpen, and like Proverbs said, sharpen one another. You got to be willing and humble to be humbled. You have to be a listener. You have to receive feedback as well. And it has to be mutual. And again, it's coaching. I'm coaching you in this moment. And that goes back to the first three things. Do they need care? Do they need correction? Or do they need coaching? So final thoughts. Build teams with wisdom and vision. You always see the ands, right? Like trust, connection, wisdom, and vision. The strongest leaders know where to find wisdom, not just answers. You can regurgitate other pastors all you want. I'm telling you, people are going to start to sense it and feel it. It's very much so the same thing with sermons or messages. The more you copy and regurgitate, people are going to feel it, and there's a disingenuousness, or honestly, you're not being authentic, and people can smell that out, especially Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They can smell out fake from a mile away. So the wisest leaders aren't the ones with all the answers. They're the ones who know where to ask for wisdom. You've heard this scripture before. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God. I love that Solomon is known for being the most wise, smartest person of all time. But people misquote that scripture. They think that Solomon just asked for any type of wisdom. He asked for wisdom to how to lead people. And God gave it to him. So every time I pray for wisdom, it's not just for wisdom for the most random stuff ever or a generalized thing. I'm asking for wisdom to lead the people God's entrusted me with, just like Solomon did. So you got to seek wisdom, not just answers, not just in books. God can give you the best strategy for your church. God can give you the best strategy for your team, the best download for somebody, the best encouragement, the best one word of encouragement, one prophetic word is better than 1,000 sermons that somebody could try to do or 20 books that you're going to give them. Just give them one prophetic word, one encouragement, and I guarantee you they're going to be feeling encouragement. Their cup's going to be full, and they're going to be more bought into the mission and vision. Last thought, we got to focus on development. Equip your team not only for the present, but who they're becoming. It's always that weird paradox, right? We are a leader today, but I'm also becoming a leader. You are in that constant phase of learning and developing, because if there's one thing that I know, you're either growing or you're dying as a leader. There's no plateauing mundaneness in the leadership journey. You're either learning something, you're either developing, you're either becoming somebody that you want to be, or you're dying. You're dying spiritually, you're dying physically, relationally. There's just never a plateauing in leadership. Ephesians 4:12, to equip his people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. That's your job. Your job is to equip people, not not manufacture things, not force things on people. Your job is to equip people, not just for the task at hand, but the person they're becoming. And that just honestly summarizes it all. Like, your job is to equip people for the works of righteousness or service for the body of Christ. So your job is to build leaders who lead leaders, who lead leaders, who lead leaders. There's a constant phase here that's actually how it works. That's how real scalability happens. That's how real development happens, is to constantly be in a place of not seeking growth, not seeking numbers, not seeking manufactured movements, but seeking strength and health. Healthy things grow, and strong things are always an indicator that God's about to do something miraculous and crazy. So I'm going to read these points again. You got to identify the needs of your people. Do they need care? Do they need correction? Or do they need coaching? 2, do they need a coffee or do they need a teaching? Coffee is somebody who has the skills but needs culture. A teaching is somebody who has the culture, doesn't have any skills. So here you go. The 2 things that you're going to do today. You're going to choose somebody. You're going to give them a mission. It's very, very practical. We always want to look at the heart. We want to look at character, not just talent and giftings. And give them a mission. Follow me and I will make you blank. Be a person, be a leader who listens. Be a leader who is empowering people around them, that their dreams that God gave them are on purpose for a purpose, and build strong relationships. I'm telling you, the best thing you could do is have fun with your team. To have no agenda, to have something on the calendar once a month or once a week or whatever fits best for all of you guys, to not make it feel like it's burdened. But very much so, you need to have fun together. You need to laugh together. I've never met a pastor or a team that's growing that doesn't have fun together, that doesn't sit at the table together, that the Last Supper is preached about, not actually listened and applied. It wasn't a sermon. It was a dinner. And we preach about the dinner, but we don't have dinners. We got to have more people at our homes. Your silverware should be tarnished because of how many times people have been in your home, pastor. That's your job. Your job is to equip the saints for the acts of righteousness or works of service. So I believe, again, if you can build a healthy, strong team, usually that's an indicator that it's going to grow. Growth is not the goal, though. Growth is always a byproduct of health and strength and unity. And unity is not conformity, but unity is in the mission and vision. We can have different preferences or methods, but at the end of the day, are we doing what God's called us to do? Do we feel secure and confident in that? Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope that this added value. If it did, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Maybe listen, add a review on the podcast on Spotify or Apple. Again, I appreciate you so much. We'll see you next week.